All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope you guys didn't get woken up too early today with those thunderstorms that are rolling through. Hello, everyone. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Good. Yes, it's another edition of Storm Talk, but the good news I can share, at least for right now, as of 10:08 on this Friday morning, no alert day for this afternoon. Again, not yet. We've got just one more little period to get through. And it's not as ominous looking this afternoon as what the past few days have been, but it's not exactly completely quiet either. So I don't want to downplay it too much. But at the moment, I don't think it's going to be as widespread of an issue. I'll go through that and walk you through it if you're thinking, oh, no, can't go through this again. We're almost there. We're almost there. And it's not going to be, again, it's going to be a different scenario this afternoon. I'll walk you through that on an hour-by-hour setup. We'll get into the weekend, and we'll talk a bit about the longer term as well. As always, you guys can comment on our social media side of things. I already see that several of you already are awake here this morning. So, yeah, we are getting ready to get back up to at least some scattered thunderstorms here in the next couple of hours. But we at least we have a break now after a morning round that came through and produced quite a bit of lightning. What a weird looking sunrise it was, right? The sun and combination of the storms. I meant to put that in the show. Forgot. I'll get it on later today for the 3 o'clock. We'll do that. Okay, before we get to that, I think it's much more important to discuss this, in my opinion, and that is the countdown to fall, which will be September 22nd. It's only 51 days, guys. Only 51 days until we get to the autumnal equinox at 8:44 in the morning. It'll be here before you know it, right? Surely it'll arrive on time. We're not going to get stuck in summer, I hope. Okay, update on the power outages. We'll start with Louisville. 4,700. That's down from 30,000 during the peak of the storm yesterday afternoon. So hats off to LG&E for working hard to try to get that taken care of. It's about 1% now of the customer base. As long as we don't have too much activity, even just rain and thunder will slow them down this afternoon. But if we don't have too much and maybe some breaks for at least the core of the city, hopefully I can get the rest of that 4,700 on today, I hope. Anyway, Hardin County over 300 out. Harrison County, Indiana, about 159 currently out of power in that area. Spencer County coming in at a little more than 75 at the moment. And we get into the capital, heading in to Franklin there, about 46 customers as well. So still some scattered outages. Several trees were knocked down. It was a very interesting scenario yesterday where we have a very soggy ground. So we noticed we were getting more damage reports on trees than we normally would in that type of wind gust type of setup. And most of the trees that fell were rather large and or tall that toppled over as well, doing more damage than normal, covering roads completely, knocking over power lines, falling on the houses. Several houses got hit with falling trees. The truck, of course, you guys saw that image there in St. Matthews that was crushed by a falling tree. So you normally don't get a lot of branches that break in that scenario. You just get the whole tree that topples over when you have a very wet ground. And that's the reason why I'm trying to exercise a bit of caution, even though I don't see as many warnings at all this afternoon for what's coming our way. It's obvious it's not taking much to cause problems for some tree damage. So we're going to be monitoring. If we get gusts, they're going to be around 50 again or 45 in a few cases. I can't rule that out. And that's where we could still run into some tree damage, even if we don't get warnings this afternoon. So just pay extra attention to that. This is a bit of a unique scenario. We don't face this often. But when we do, wave country and with our type of soils we have here, especially in Kentucky versus even Indiana, but you get into our type of soils that are waterlogged and soaked. History has proven in our area over and over again that tree damage goes up around here if you keep dealing with storms with a very wet ground. So we're not out of that yet. The rain didn't help either this morning, so that's keeping things quite soggy. So that's the reason why we'll be watching it. Carlos, real quick, good question. Does Shepherdsville have straight line winds or possible tornado? I did not see any rotation last night with the storms. We were looking. Most of the signatures that we saw yesterday were downburst scenario winds, which is common and a very hot, humid scenario. Heat index values around 105 when the storms were moving in. So there was a lot of fuel for them to work with. Not a lot of winds aloft. So the storms had to use the heat energy, basically, and the amount of moisture in the air to create their own collapsing wind, if you will. Much harder to pick out, by the way, much harder to pick out until they can either bow out in a segment, or you have a prolonged event that really shows up on radar. Usually, though, the radar is really tough to catch those events. But again, I think, Carlos, in that situation, even down in Bullitt County, we saw the wind pick up in that area along 65 and then race toward Mount Washington. So it was around Lebanon Junction, Shepherdsville, through Mount Washington. That was a downburst signature that we were looking at. So I think it just had a very soggy ground. So the tree came down for that reason. Sorry, maybe long answer for a short answer is what it should have been, but you get the idea, Carlos. Okay, sorry about that. All right, here's the latest look from downtown. Notice that we do have several clouds redeveloping after a bit of clearing that took place briefly this morning after the storms. We're starting to cloud back up as we head into the midday hour, and I think that's going to be a factor too on some of the storm action coming up here in the next few hours. Okay, the morning round, here's the radar loop. It produced strong winds on radar this morning, but we had a layer of the atmosphere that would not allow the trees to get to the tree line, or the wind to get to the tree line or below this morning. That was not able to happen, which was a good thing. You still had some wind of 30 miles per hour that took place, but you did get to the severe wind, even though the wind was indeed severe above our heads this morning. Thank goodness it did not reach the ground this morning, or we would have had more wind damage coming in from the morning hours. But because we had that layer that was a little bit pronounced, an inversion, we call that, just because of timing of day of them moving in at that time of the morning, the wind wasn't able to get to the ground level. So we lucked out this morning. We got the pockets of moderate heavy rainfall. The rain for them this morning coming in, half inch was fairly common, but a few spots did get to an inch, especially, I would say, near the Bullitt County line through Harrison County, Meade County, and down through Hardin County and Nelson. You guys did pick up, even down close to Grayson, close to an inch of rain with that batch this morning. Those of you north of Louisville, really, it just didn't develop. So you were missed entirely on that. So that's the reason why a lot of you from Washington County, Clark County even, heading into Madison and Jefferson County, Indiana, were skipped this morning. Okay, but that does bring our total here to some impressive amounts. I mean, just about everyone in Wave Country has had at least an inch of rain. Several of you have had 2 this week. Many of you have had more than 4 inches of rain, and some of you, more than a half a foot of rain has fallen this week alone, and that is a tremendous amount. So, again, as I mentioned yesterday, we're still under the drought status in eastern areas, but yeah, no, don't worry about that. This has taken care of that and set us in a good spot, really, for the rest of the summer. We can handle some heat waves and prolonged dry periods without a lot of damage now, but our driest period is usually in September. So if you get too long of a period of dry weather, this can still be erased. It may not seem like it, but you go through a few weeks of dry weather and later in August and September without any rain, you can go right into a drought quickly again. So we're not completely out of the woods for the rest of the summer, but at least for a couple of weeks or so, this is going to hold us over. So that's good, and I hope the farmers are happy about that. Now you just need it to dry out so you can get in the fields. That's a whole other story. All right, so the morning little small MCS feature moved on by, already beginning to weaken. We see a little bit of the curl there around Lexington, the little driver in the seat scooting it along, beginning to weaken. Notice the clouds that have developed there across Indiana. That cloud deck, as it develops, this will likely be midday downpours. We don't know if this is going to be thunderstorms or not that will develop, but this should be the beginning stages of some downpours with some lightning that will likely develop in the next couple of hours. That should develop and then pinwheel through the area, and then we will likely get a few more that will rotate in. Your severe potential today is going to be on the eastern side of the track of the low pressure. You can easily see where this low is spinning near Indianapolis. You've got your little spokes that are kind of pinwheeling around this low as it moves on by. So the whole low is heading east itself, but that spoke as it moves in from the northwest is what's going to fire up any thunderstorm potential today. And your severe risk is going to be on the eastern side of that low. And even in the eastern side, there's several factors that are missing today that were not present in the MCS feature. This is different than an MCS. These are just scattered lines of thunderstorms, little spokes that will develop pinwheeling around low pressure. Yesterday, and really the past 6 events that we've had have actually been complexes of thunderstorms, much smaller, tiny low pressures, but they got a kick to them. Those have been the one that have been the main driver for our thunderstorm and severe setup that we had for several days here for this week. So again, a different setup today in getting thunderstorms, but you can still get some that could be on the strong side. We do have a marginal risk near 65 and points to the east. So I can't roll out an isolated severe thunderstorm warning as possible, but widespread severe thunderstorm warnings are not on the table for today, which is good. The latest high-res data does try again to develop these downpours close to 1 o'clock. So again, a couple of hours from now, the radar will begin. Areas near and east of 65, again, will actually feature the greatest potential to get your downpours and thunderstorms. Those of you south and west, while it's painting Breckenridge and Grayson County, there is a chance you could get skipped here today. So your rain chance is much lower than, say, around Indiana through Madison, the 71 corridor, and Shelbyville down to Bardstown. The chances are a bit higher for the eastern side. But we'll have a few little spokes pass through the area. And again, even a wind gust over 40 miles per hour, which is possible today. And a few of these that pop could produce some minor wind damage. So that's something we'll be watching for trees as that begins to pop there. As far as the timing, well, I'll show you this as we get into tomorrow. We do have a very small rain chance tomorrow, but the trend is to get the rain chance out of the forecast tomorrow. That's good. And it's out on Sunday. So the weekend looks quiet. Okay, the rain chance for today, I'm going to start to increase it up to about a 40% over the next couple of hours to account for the first little spoke here developing. It'll pass on by, and I'm just going to keep it at 40 all the way through the evening, only because it is going to be very off and on, these downpours. You'll have one move through. They'll be much smaller in size than we've had, by the way, this week, so they won't last as long. I would say 20 minutes at a time, maybe. They will pop, move by. You may even get back into some sun. It's possible. But you'll have one that move through. It'll quiet down. Another one rolls on through. It'll quiet down. And maybe a third one in that entire window. Again, around Louisville and east, your coverage is going to be a little more numerous. So really, your chances could be closer to 70, 80% today. But we'll split the hairs on the viewing area and go to about 40 on this ordeal. All right. Lightning is still going to be quite obvious today, so be aware of that. Even that's not a severe weather element, but that is going to be around. And obviously, with the wet ground, these downpours, we'll just track them. They'll be moving, which is good because that low was spinning things around fast enough. Thank goodness on that, because if it was moving slower, we would run into a bigger flash flooding issue. But they will be moving enough that I'm hoping we can stay out of flood advisory, flood warning criteria today. But that too is possible, especially if we get more than one in one particular area. So be weather aware on that. Okay, so that's the setup today. It's not too bad, right? I hope I didn't worry too much on that. It's not perfect. We're not, again, completely out of this thunderstorm warning chance here today, but it's much lower on the notches than what we've had for this week. I promise you, we're going to be watching it as we have been all week. And if there's a reason for us to get on, if we see a potential for a more robust setup this afternoon, you'll see us on. Okay. What about the tropics? You know, I haven't had a chance to talk about that. I'm glad you mentioned it. We haven't chance. I'm really tired. Sorry. We haven't a chance to talk about the tropics, but it's worth mentioning that this is getting a lot of attention while we've been dealing with our weather drama as of late down into the Caribbean. They're monitoring what's happening with likely to be Debbie that is going to form. The center of it now is over Cuba. Some questions on whether or not the center will reemerge on the northern part of Cuba or it will be on the southern part. That makes a big difference whether or not we're looking at Louisiana and the Panhandle to get hit, or it's going to be a Fort Myers, Tampa Bay area that will have some impacts before it gets off the coast of Charleston and Myrtle Beach, where it may take about 4 days, 3 to 4 days to get through the Carolinas. Ooh, boy, if you have friends or family in Florida or the Carolinas, on the beaches especially, now is your time to rub it in that we got some dry weather next week. because they are not going to be dry at all. A tremendous amount of rain. And right now, this is only forecast to get the tropical storm status. But you guys, I can tell already, you're junior meteorologist. I've been paying attention to your comments. We know that the intensity forecast on tropical systems is not the best. So while the modeling overall is indicating a tropical storm, I can't rule out that this could get to a hurricane. It's possible. But then again, the name would be Debbie. Right now, I do not see any impacts for us. All the data so far is keeping this as a coastal setup because of our active setup that we've got here. Now, what is interesting about any type of tropical system you get in this area of the country, whether it's the Carolinas or the Mid-Atlantic, you get a decent amount of sinking air on the northwest side. And that could bode well for us until it gets a little higher in latitude up the coast here. We will likely still deal with a humid scenario and hot. I mean, it is going to be, it may be some of the hottest of the summer may develop here early next week. I know you are excited about that as well. But it would be hot and mainly dry. So I guess there's a plus. But it is going to be a hot start to the week. Now, we could see again a drop in temperature and a drier push of a sinking air that it may develop midweek, depending on what happens here with Debbie. That would allow that to happen. Now, once Debbie does disappear and get a little higher in latitudes and gets yanked quickly in the westerlies and carried away, my concern is we may get into an MCS setup again later next week and next weekend. The modeling's not settled on that, but the wind fields ramp up at an angle once again from the northwest. So it's possible we may get back into what we are dealing with this week. We may face again, but we've got a week to worry about that and analyze that. So don't get too upset and worried right now. We got plenty of time. I'm just giving you guys, as we always do here on the blog, right? We discuss long-term stuff. That is the long-term setup. All right, what questions can I answer for you guys? And I'll stop my rambling. I always ramble more when I'm tired, so I apologize on that one. Would you say, Joel, I'll be home in Wilmington as you head into that? Okay, yeah, well, keep us updated, Joe, when we're live here on the blog next week. It could be, you could have some interesting videos to send us. Any possible reduction in humidity sooner rather than later? Yes and no. I say yes in the sense the humidity levels do drop somewhat, but only from extreme to typical summer humidity. So I don't know if you're really going to be like, this is great. I don't know if you'll feel that. You could with Debbie, as far as the impacts here of the sinking air, you could. That is certainly, yes, a possibility. That would be about Wednesday. If that were to happen, that would be the day for that. Otherwise, it is going to be humid. It's just going to be drier as far as not as much thunderstorm action for the next few days. Once we get past this afternoon and evening, we're going to be dry for several days. In fact, let me just go ahead and get you to the 10-day, and we'll wrap this up and let you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday, right? And let's hope we can stay quiet. We'll go with 87, by the way, this afternoon. Hot weekend in the 90s. I'm hoping we can get rid of that 10% on Saturday. That is possible. But right now it's only 10%, so it's not major at all, right? Next week, there's the heat. We'll go lower 90s now, but the trend is to go hotter. And if that continues to build, we're going to raise these numbers up. And we'll just see what happens for the middle of the week. And we'll see if we get some of that sinking air. It would be nice, but no doubt the extended at the very end of the 10-day, that's when we could get back in that stormy pattern. I hope that's not the case, but that is a trend for now. All right, guys. Otherwise, I'll see you on our streaming newscast. Remember, the Olympics are on the main channel. We'll be streaming our 3 o'clock, starting at 3 o'clock today, our newscast. I hope, no offense, that I don't see you sooner than that.